The sky died first. Not with fire, not with the thunderous roar of orbital bombardment humanity had braced for during the long, paranoid decades of the Cold War's echo. No, it died with a sigh, a vast, silent exhalation of impossible geometry that blotted out the sun, the moon, the very stars themselves. One moment Earth basked in the fragile blue marble glow of a world finally learning, however, clumsily to share its air and water. The next, a lid slammed shut. A seamless obsidian canopy, kilometers thick, humming with a subsonic thrum that vibrated in the marrow, not the ears. They called it the Shroud. The architects called it Catharvex, the sky prison, and beneath it, humanity gasped its last breath of open sky. Years bled into decades. Generations were born knowing only the Shroud's oppressive, starless twilight. Cities became necropolises, choked by dust and despair. The conquerors, the Jacor, descended not as invaders but as indifferent custodians, towering, multi-limbed beings of chitinous plates and cold, multifaceted eyes. They moved through the ruins with the detached efficiency of gardeners pruning deadwood. Their war machines, sleek obsidian scarabs that scuttled across the rubble, harvested resources with chilling precision. Humanity was deemed Kalarn, the unstable element, a biological anomaly, a planet-wide death world whose chaotic, violent history and terrifying adaptability made it unfit for the Jacor's meticulously ordered galactic consortium. Not worth exterminating, not worth integrating, merely contained, quarantined beneath the Shroud until entropy claimed them all. But entropy, it seemed, had met its match in the stubborn, bloody-mindedness of Homo sapiens. Deep within the fractured bedrock beneath the ruins of what was once Denver, Colorado, the air tasted of damp stone, ozone, and desperation. Flickering bioluminescent fungi cast long, dancing shadows on the cavern walls, illuminating faces etched with grime and resolve. This was Haven 7, one of the last known human enclaves clinging to existence in the planet's bones. Its heart wasn't a command center, but a geothermal vent, a throbbing, sulfurous artery of raw planetary heat they'd harnessed for power, light, and most crucially, secrecy. The Jacor sensors, brilliant as they were at scanning the surface and atmosphere, struggled to penetrate the chaotic thermal signatures and dense mineral layers of the deep crust. At the edge of the main cavern, overlooking the churning vent, stood Aris Thorn. Not a soldier by birth, but forged in the crucible of the Shroud's shadow. His face, lean and sharp beneath a thatch of dark, unruly hair, held eyes that had seen too much. The fall of the surface cities, the slow attrition of hope, the quiet deaths of friends, swallowed by the dark. Yet, within those eyes burned a cold, hard ember. He wasn't just surviving, he was planning. His fingers traced the worn edge of a salvaged Jacor data slate, its alien glyphs glowing faintly. Beside him, hunched over a jury-rigged console cobbled from scavenged tech and human ingenuity, was Cal, younger, wiry, his fingers flying over cracked touchscreens with the frantic energy of a cornered animal. Kyle's specialty wasn't combat, it was ghosts. He hunted the whispers in the Jacor comms, the faint electronic sighs leaking through the Shroud's shield. "They're shifting patrol patterns again, Aris," Kyle rasped, his voice raw from recycled air and tension. He didn't look up, his gaze fixed on scrolling streams of alien code. Sector Gamma 9. Increased thermal sweeps. They're agitated. Something spooked them. Aris grunted, his gaze fixed on the vent's turbulent surface. Spooked? The Jacor don't get spooked, Kale. They calculate, they optimize, they contain. He finally turned, his voice dropping, becoming a low thrum that matched the cavern's own pulse. Unless they found something. Kale finally tore his eyes from the screen, his young face pale. Found what? We've been ghosts down here for 20 years, deeper than any of their probes have ever gone. The geothermal masking is solid. Solid enough? Aris countered, stepping closer. The flickering light caught the deep lines around his eyes, the scar that ran from temple to jaw, a souvenir from a surface skirmish long ago. Or just lucky. They've catalogued every rat hole on the surface. What makes us think the bones of the planet are truly safe? He placed a hand on Cale's shoulder, the gesture surprisingly gentle. We push deeper tomorrow. The old Denver metro tunnels. Rumor is there's a geothermal pocket down there, untouched. Big enough to power a small city, big enough to hide an army. Cale swallowed hard. Deeper means closer to the mantle shift zones. The rock's unstable. One tremor means we're already dead. If they find us up here. Air is finished. His voice hardening. Staying put is the real gamble. Cale, stagnation is surrender. And we don't surrender. He looked out over the cavern, at the huddled figures tending hydroponic trays, mending gear, whispering stories of a sky they'd never seen. We fight, from the bones, with the bones. That's all we have left. High above, suspended within the impossible architecture of the shroud's central nexus, Overseer Vorlak observed the data streams flowing across his crystalline interface. His form was imposing, 7 segmented limbs ending in delicate manipulators, a carapace of iridescent black chitin, and a cluster of eyes that processed light across spectrums invisible to human perception. Below him, through a transparent section of the floor, the dim, ruined tapestry of Earth's surface stretched out, a testament to failed biological chaos. Anomaly detected. Subsurface thermal signature. Fluctuation pattern inconsistent with known geothermal activity. The report scrolled across his primary visual field. Designation Sector Gamma 9. Depth 3.7 kilometers. Probability of Keshalarn habitation 87. Vorlak's mandibles clicked softly, a sound like grinding stone. Kalarn. The unstable element. A designation born of cold logic. Yet, a flicker of something else stirred within his complex neural net. Not fear. The Zakadr did not fear, but unease, a statistical anomaly that defied the clean equations of containment. For decades, the Kalarn had dwindled, their surface presence reduced to scattered, feral packs easily culled. Yet whispers persisted. Ghost signals, unexplained resource drains near deep geological formations. Now this, he accessed the historical archives. Images flickered. Primitive Kalarn settlements burning under orbital lances during the initial pacification. Their crude, explosive weapons detonating with terrifying, unpredictable ferocity against Jakor's shield harmonics. Their biological resilience, surviving radiation levels that would liquefy lesser species. Healing from wounds that should have been fatal. A death world species. Yes. But one exhibiting an illogical, wasteful persistence that consumed resources merely to exist. Why? The question, unbidden, surfaced in Vorlak's mind. The Zakadr's Shathos was efficiency, order, the preservation of stable systems. The Kalarn expended colossal energy on concepts like hope, legacy, revenge, chaotic variables with no quantifiable yield. It was inefficient, irrational, dangerous. He signaled his subordinate, Sub-Overseer Xylos. Deploy deep scan probes to Sector Gamma 9 coordinates. Full spectrum analysis. Penetration depth 5 kilometers. Authorization Vorlak Prime. His voice, translated through the shroud's resonators, was a low, resonant hum that vibrated the very air. Confirm or eliminate the anomaly. The Kalarn must not be permitted to establish subterranean strongholds. Containment integrity is paramount. Xylos. Smaller, sharper. His movements precise and economical, bowed his multi-jointed head. As commanded, Overseer. The anomaly will be resolved. There was no hesitation, no flicker of doubt. Only the smooth execution of protocol. Xylos saw the Kalarn not as a puzzle but as a malfunction to be corrected. A weed to be eradicated before it cracked the foundation of order. Vorlak watched the probe deployment sequence initiate. Yet the unease remained. The historical data, the sheer tenacity displayed in those fragmented records, it didn't compute. It felt less like biology and more like geology. Like the slow, grinding pressure of tectonic plates. Unstoppable, inevitable. He dismissed the thought. Emotion was a flaw. Logic would prevail. The shroud was absolute. The Kalarn were contained. Dawn in Haven 7 was a myth. But the shift cycle marked a change. The bioluminescent fungi dimmed slightly, replaced by the harsher glare of work lamps as the exploration team assembled. Eris stood before them, 10 hardened souls clad in patched thermal suits, faces grained but eyes sharp. Among them was Brenna, her frame compact but radiating coiled strength, a salvaged plasma cutter strapped to her hip like a sidearm. She met Eris's gaze, a silent understanding passing between them. Veterans of 100 near misses. "The metro tunnels," Eris announced, his voice cutting through the cavern's low hum. "We go deep. We find that pocket, we map it, we secure it. Quietly. Any sign of Jacquard activity, thermal, sonic, EM, you freeze, you signal, you disappear. We are ghosts. Remember that." He paused, letting the weight of their mission settle. "This isn't just about power. This is about breathing room, about a future where our children don't just survive in the dark, but live. Maybe even see the sky again." The last words were almost a whisper, a dangerous hope spoken aloud. Cale handed Eris a small, palm-sized device, a modified seismic sensor, linked to Haven comms. "If you hit anything big, it'll scream." His usual nervous energy was replaced by focused intensity. "Be careful, Eris." Eris clapped him on the shoulder. "Keep listening, Cale. If the sky starts talking, I want to know before it shouts." He turned to the team. "Move out." The descent was a journey into the planet's forgotten veins. They navigated collapsed service tunnels, scaled sheer rock faces slick with mineral deposits, their helmet lamps cutting cones of light through absolute blackness. The air grew hotter, thicker, smelling of sulfur and ancient stone. The silence was profound, broken only by the crunch of boots on rubble, the rasp of breath in helmets, and the distant, unsettling groan of the planet itself shifting deep below. Hours bled away. Hope began to fray. Then Brenna, scouting ahead, signaled sharply. Eris crept forward. Before them yawned a vast natural cavern, far larger than anything on their maps, and in its center, pulsing with a deep internal crimson light, was the geothermal pocket, a lake of superheated magma, contained by sheer rock walls, radiating immense, clean energy. It was perfect. Sanctuary. Power. Hope made manifest. Eris allowed himself a rare, tight smile. Found it. But as they moved to secure the perimeter, Brenna froze, her hand shooting up. She pointed, not at the magma lake, but at the cavern wall opposite. Embedded in the rock, partially obscured by millennia of mineral growth, was something wrong. Not natural. Smooth, obsidian black, humming with the same subsonic thrum as the shroud. The Jacquard sensor node. Ancient, dormant. But undeniably there. Before Eris could react, the node flared to life. A piercing, high-frequency whine shattered the silence, echoing through the cavern. Simultaneously, Cale's voice crackled in their helmets, laced with panic. "Eris, massive energy spike, deep scan probes. They're triangulating your position. Get out. Now." Above, in the shroud's nexus, Verloc watched the confirmation flash on his interface. Anomaly confirmed. Subterranean habitation, coordinates locked. The unease crystallized into cold certainty. The Kalan weren't just hiding. They were digging, building, resisting. Sub-Overseer Xylos, Verloc commanded, his voice devoid of its earlier contemplation, now pure, chilling authority. "Deploy the excavation clause. Full sterilization protocol. Eradicate the infestation. Leave no trace." On the surface, miles above the trembling earth, the obsidian scarabs detached from their perches. Their forms unfolded, revealing articulated limbs ending in plasma drills and sonic emitters capable of shattering bedrock. They descended, not with the slow certainty of custodians, but with the swift, brutal efficiency of exterminators. Their target, Haven 7. Their mission, total annihilation. Deep in the newly discovered cavern, Eris stared at the flaring sensor node, then up at the ceiling, feeling the first faint tremors of the planet's bones beginning to shake. The whine of the node was joined by a deeper, more terrifying vibration, the sound of the sky itself coming to kill them. The ghosts had been found, and the shroud was about to crack open the earth. The world didn't end with a bang, but with a scream of rending rock. The excavation claws hit the surface above Haven 7 like falling stars of pure malice. Plasma drills, screaming at frequencies designed to resonate with specific mineral lattices, bit into the crust. Sonic emitters pulsed, sending shock waves that traveled through the bedrock like vengeful spirits, shattering ancient strata, collapsing tunnels, turning solid stone into shifting, treacherous quicksand. Dust, thick and choking, billowed through the ventilation shafts, plunging Haven 7 into a suffocating brown twilight. Chaos erupted. Alarms wailed. Human klaxons mixed with the shriek of failing systems. People ran, not with panic but with the grim, practiced efficiency of those who knew the drill. When the sky falls, run deeper. Mothers clutched children, dragging them towards the emergency deep shelters carved into the hardest rock. Medics scrambled towards the infirmary, already anticipating the crush injuries. The burns from ruptured geothermal lines, the air filled with the acrid tang of ozone, burning insulation and primal fear. Eres and his team burst back into the main cavern. Lungs burning from the dust-choked descent, they found Kale frantically rerouting power, his face streaked with grime and sweat. "They're drilling straight down," he yelled over the cacophony. "Targeting the main vent. If they breach, the whole cavern floods with superheated steam," Aris finished, his mind racing. The vent was their lifeblood, their shield. Destroy it, and Haven 7 became an oven. "Brenna, seal the primary access tunnels. Buy us time." "Kale, can you jam their comms, even for a minute?" Kale shook his head, despair warring with determination. "Their signal's riding the shroud's backbone. It's like trying to shout down a hurricane. But maybe I can spoof a thermal signature, make them think the vent's already breached, trick them into shifting focus." "Do it!" Aris roared, already moving. "Everyone else, to the deep shelters, now!" He grabbed a heavy mining laser from a rack, its weight familiar, comforting in its lethality. He wasn't going to the shelter. He was going up, towards the noise. Towards the claws. Brenna met his eyes as she slammed a manual override on a massive blast door. "Suicide run. Error. Distraction run," he corrected, a grim smile touching his lips. "Make them look here while Kale works his magic there. Give our people a chance." He clapped her shoulder. "Keep them safe, Brenna." He turned and sprinted towards the service elevator shaft, a rickety human-built contraption leading towards the upper maintenance levels, closer to the surface assault. The vibrations intensified, shaking the very platform beneath his feet. Dust rained down like gray snow. He could feel the excavation claws now, not just as sound but as a physical pressure, a malevolent presence boring down through the planet's flesh. High above, Virak monitored the sterilization operation. Data streams showed rock density decreasing, thermal signatures spiking as the drills neared the primary geothermal reservoir. Efficiency, order, containment restored. The unease was gone, replaced by the cold satisfaction of a problem solved. The clan anomaly was being excised. Sub-Overseer Uxylos stood beside him, his manipulators poised over the control interface. "The infestation is contained within the primary cavern complex. Overseer, sterilization will be complete within 0.7 cycles, minimal resource expenditure." Vidlock nodded. "Ensure no biological material escapes. Incinerate all organic residue. The Death World taint must not spread." He watched the schematic of the human enclave blink out, sector by sector. As the claws advanced, it was clean. It was final. It was necessary. Then, a new alert flashed. "Minor, anomalous energy signature detected in the upper maintenance conduits. Human origin. Primitive energy weapon discharge." Foolish, Varlik thought, a final, desperate gesture. He signaled one claw to divert slightly, to eliminate the nuisance, a waste of processing power, but protocol demanded it. Eris crouched in the cramped, metal-walled maintenance tunnel, the mining laser humming in his hands. Below, through a grating, he could see the obsidian bulk of an excavation claw, its plasma drill, a searing white point boring relentlessly upwards. The heat was intense, warping the air. He took a breath. the recycled air tasting of metal and fear, and fired. The laser beam, crude but powerful, lanced out, striking the claw's articulated joint. Sparks flew. The machine shuddered, its drills stuttering. It swiveled its sensor cluster, a cluster of cold, multifaceted eyes towards the source of the attack. Eris fired again, a wild, desperate shot that glanced off its carapace. He didn't need to destroy it. He just needed its attention. "Got you," he thought, a savage grin splitting his dust-caked face. He scrambled backwards as the claw's sonic emitter swiveled towards his position, emitting a focused pulse that turned the metal grating beneath him into molten slag. He barely rolled clear, the heat searing his suit. He was buying seconds, precious, bloody seconds. Back in the main cavern, Kale was sweating blood. His fingers flew over the console, splicing into the Jacquard's own deep-scan telemetry, feeding it false data, a catastrophic thermal cascade originating from the vent itself. "Come on! Come on! Believe it!" he hissed. On the main display, the schematic of the excavation claws showed one unit diverting towards Eris's position. The others hesitated. Their drill patterns shifted slightly, probing the area around the vent with renewed caution, scanning for the non-existent breach. "It's working?" Kale yelled, a note of disbelief in his voice. "They're buying it? Eris, get out of there!" But Eris was already moving, deeper into the crumbling tunnels, leading the diverted claw on a deadly chase through the labyrinthine guts of the mountain. He knew he couldn't win. He just had to survive long enough. The reprieve was temporary. The Sarkor were not fools. Within minutes, their superior sensors detected the inconsistency in the thermal data. The spoof was exposed. The claws redoubled their assault on the vent with terrifying fury. The main cavern groaned. Cracks spiderwebbed across the ceiling. Superheated steam began hissing from ruptured pipes. In the deep shelter, packed with the Enclave's survivors, Brenna stood guard at the reinforced blast door. She heard the renewed assault, felt the cavern shake with the force of a dying god. Her hand tightened on her plasma cutter. Eris was still out there. Kale was still out there, and the sky was winning. Then Kayla's voice, strained but clear, came over the shelter comms. "Brenna, listen. The spoof failed, but I found something else. While I was in their system, I accessed their historical archives. The real reason they shrouded us." Brenna's blood ran cold. "What? What reason?" "It wasn't just because we're Deathworlders." Kale's voice cracked with the weight of the revelation. "It was because of Project Prometheus, our last-ditch orbital defense network. The one they destroyed in the first hour of the invasion. They didn't just disable it, Brenna, they harvested it. The core AI, the fusion reactors, the weapon systems, they ripped it all out, and they're using it. They're using our own tech to power the shroud." The silence in the shelter was absolute, broken only by the groaning rock and the distant scream of drills. The betrayal was cosmic. The cage wasn't just alien. It was built from the bones of humanity's last hope. Their own ingenuity turned against them. The shroud wasn't just a prison. It was a monument to their defeat, powered by their stolen dreams. Brenna closed her eyes, the weight of it crushing. How do you fight an enemy that doesn't just conquer you, but consumes you, that uses your own strength to bind you tighter? Above, Ralak received the confirmation that the thermal spoof was a deception. Irritation, a rare emotion, flickered through his neural net. The Kalarn were not only persistent, but clever, wastefully, illogically clever. He watched the schematic as the primary claw finally breached the outer casing of the geothermal vent. Superheated steam erupted, filling the upper cavern levels. Human life signs in that sector blinked out rapidly. Efficient. But the report from the diverted claw noted the human attacker had vanished into unstable tunnels, presumed crushed. Another minor anomaly resolved. Raylick turned his attention back to the core data stream, the power flow from the salvaged Kalarn orbital platform. Prometheus seamlessly integrated into the shroud's matrix. It was a marvel of efficiency, really, harnessing the chaotic energy output of the Deathworld species' own failed defense for the ultimate act of containment. Order born from chaos. The perfect solution. He felt a strange satisfaction. Not just in the eradication of the Haven 7 infestation, but in the elegant symmetry of it. The Keelarn's own ambition had forged their eternal cage. Their struggle was not just futile, it was fuel. Deep in the unstable tunnels, Aris coughed, spitting out dust and blood. He'd barely escaped the collapsing section triggered by the claw's sonic pulse. His suit was torn. His ribs screamed with every breath. He leaned against the hot rock wall, listening to the fading sounds of the assault above. He'd bought time. But for what? Kale's voice, crackling weakly in his helmet, delivered the devastating truth about Prometheus. Aris slumped. The stolen sky, the stolen hope, the crushing weight of it threatened to extinguish the ember in his eyes. What was the point? They were fighting with sticks against a god built from their own bones. Then he felt it. Not through his ears, but through the soles of his boots. A deep, rhythmic thrum, different from the shroud's hum. Deeper, older, the pulse of the planet itself. The geothermal heart they'd sought, and within that pulse, an idea began to form. Not of escape, not of reclaiming the sky, but of using the bones. Using the very thing the Jakor thought made them weak, their connection to this chaotic living rock, as a weapon. He looked at the mining laser in his hand, then at the searing heat radiating from the nearby rock face. A slow, dangerous smile spread across his battered face. They wanted to crack the planet open. Fine. Let's see who controls the cracks. Let's see if their perfect order can withstand the raw, untamed fury of the Death World's core. He keyed his calm, his voice rough but steady. Keliel Brenna, listen up. Forget the sky, forget Prometheus. We fight with the planet, not against it. I need schematics. All the old seismic data. Every fault line. Every magma chamber within 100 clicks. And Keliel, find me the shroud's harmonic frequency. The one that resonates with the bedrock. A stunned silence followed. Then Callie, catching on, his voice trembling with a new kind of energy. The resonance. Aris, if we hit it just right, we could trigger a cascade failure. Not just in the shroud's foundation, but in the Prometheus core itself. It's linked. Exactly, Aris said, pushing himself off the wall, the pain forgotten in the fire of the plan. They built their cage on our bones. Now we make the bones shake. He looked up, not towards the surface, but deeper into the planet's fiery heart. Tell everyone the real fight starts now. From the bones. With the bone. The tremors weren't just from the claws anymore. They were the first stirrings of the planet waking up. And Aris, Thorn intended to be its voice. The deep shelter wasn't a refuge anymore. It was a war room carved from desperation. Maps, hand-drawn geological surveys, salvaged Jakor schematics, overlaid with frantic human annotations, covered every available surface. The air crackled with a new kind of tension. Not just fear, but the electric hum of a gambit so audacious it bordered on madness. Hope, sharp and dangerous. Brenna moved among the people, her usual stoicism replaced by a fierce, protective energy. She distributed weapons, not just plasma cutters, but jury-rigged seismic charges, sonic emitters scavenged from mining equipment. Anything that could channel the planet's rage. Her eyes, when they met Aris's as he limped in, held a question. Can this work? His answer was in the set of his jaw, the fire back in his eyes. It has to. Kale was a whirlwind at his console. Now linked to every sensor net they could patch together, deep Earth seismographs, thermal probes, even the faint residual signals from the damaged Jakor node they'd found. Got it? He yelled, pointing to a complex waveform on his screen, the shroud's primary harmonic resonance. It's tied directly to the Prometheus core's containment field frequency. Hit the bedrock with a counter-frequency pulse at this amplitude. He trailed off, his face pale. And it won't just crack the shroud's foundation, it'll overload the Prometheus core, catastrophic feedback. The whole shroud could destabilize. Could, Brenna asked, her voice tight. Will, Aris stated, stepping forward. He pointed to a complex network of fault lines converging deep beneath the shroud's central nexus. This is the key. The Denver seismic anomaly. A natural pressure point. We don't need to destroy the shroud. We just need to tickle it. Right here. He tapped the map. A focused pulse, amplified by the geothermal energy from the pocket we found channeled through these old magma conduits. It'll travel straight up, like striking a bell. It's insane, a grizzled miner named Jax muttered, his voice rough. We're talking about triggering a magnitude 9 quake under our own feet. We'll be crushed. We're already crushed if we do nothing. Aris shot back, his voice ringing in the confined space. The claws are regrouping. They'll find the shelters. They'll find the geothermal pocket. They'll turn this whole mountain into glass. This is the only play left. We use the planet's own power against them. We make the death world roar. He looked around at the faces, scared, exhausted, but listening. They think we're just animals in a cage. Let's show them what happens when the cage bites back. A murmur ran through the group. Fear was still there, but beneath it something else stirred. The old, stubborn defiance. The refusal to be erased. Brenna nodded slowly, then turned to Jax. Jax, you know these old magma conduits better than anyone. Can we route the energy? Jax looked at the map, then at Aris's fierce eyes, then at the faces of the children huddled in the corner. He spat on the ground. We can. But it'll take every ounce of juice we got and then some. And someone's got to be down at the vent pocket to trigger the pulse manually. When the main systems go critical, all eyes turned to Aris. He didn't hesitate. I'll do it. No, Brenna said, stepping in front of him. You're hurt. You led the distraction. You planned this. You stay here. Command. I'll go. Her voice brooked to no argument. Someone's got to make sure you don't get any more stupid ideas while I'm down there. Aris searched her face, saw the resolve, the acceptance. He nodded, a lump in his throat. Bring the sky down, Brenna. High in the shroud's nexus, Verlac monitored the final stages of Haven 7's sterilization. The geothermal vent was breached. The caverns flooded with lethal steam. Life signs were extinguished. Order was restored. Yet a new anomaly flickered on his sensors. Subtle, deep, unusual seismic activity converging on the Denver seismic anomaly. Not natural. Too focused. Too rhythmic. The Kalarn, he realized. A cold dread, alien and unwelcome, seeping into his logic circuits. They are not extinguished. They are engineering. The historical data flooded back. The Kalarn's terrifying capacity for turning environmental hazards into weapons. Their irrational, wasteful ingenuity. They weren't just fighting in the death world. They were fighting as the death world. Exolos? Ratlac commanded, his voice sharper than before. Divert all excavation claws to the Denver seismic anomaly coordinates. Maximum depth. Disrupt the geological formation. Now. But it was too late. The Kalarn had already moved. Deep within the planet, Brenna stood on a narrow ledge overlooking the newly discovered geothermal pocket. The crimson light of the magma lake bathed her in an infernal glow. Around her, the modified mining equipment, now repurposed as a crude but powerful seismic amplifier, hummed with building energy fed by cables snaking down from Haven 7's main grid and directly from the vent's raw power. Kale's voice was a constant stream in her ear, feeding her data, countdowns, warnings. Energy levels at 85%. 90%. Harmonic alignment holding. Eris, the claws are converging on your position. They're trying to collapse the tunnels above the anomaly. Eras's voice, calm but urgent, came through. Hold the line, Kale. Brenna, on your mark. We need that pulse now. Brenna took a deep breath, the heat searing her lungs even through her suit. She thought of the sky she'd never seen, the children in the shelter, Eris's stubborn face. She placed her hand on the manual trigger. A heavy lever connected to the amplifier's core. For the bones, she whispered. She pulled. The amplifier didn't just hum, it screamed. Raw geothermal energy, focused and shaped by human desperation and Jacor-harvested tech, surged into the ancient magma conduits. The ground beneath Brenna's feet didn't just shake, it convulsed. A deep, resonant boom echoed through the planet's crust, not a sound heard, but a force felt in every bone, every cell. In the shroud's nexus, Rowlac felt it first as a tremor in his own chitinous frame. Then his primary display exploded with warnings. Catastrophic resonance detected. Source: Denver seismic anomaly. Frequency match, shroud structural harmonic, Prometheus core containment field instability. No. The word tore from Veralax's resonators, a sound of pure, illogical denial. He watched in horror as the schematic of the shroud flickered. Cracks, glowing with internal energy, spiderwebbed across the central nexus floor. Alarms shrieked. Not Shaker alarms, but the harsh, human klaxes of the Prometheus core, now screaming its own death throes as the feedback loop ignited. The shroud wasn't just cracking, it was unraveling. On the surface, the impossible happened. The seamless, starless obsidian canopy rippled, like stone thrown into a pond of darkness. Then, with a sound like the sky itself tearing apart, vast sections of the shroud buckled, warped, and shattered. Not into dust, but into colossal, jagged shards that tumbled from the heavens, crashing onto the ruins below with apocalyptic force. Through the gaps, for the first time in decades, stars became visible. Cold, distant, but undeniably there. The excavation claws, caught in the gravitational and energetic chaos of the collapsing shroud, spun wildly out of control. Some were crushed by falling debris, others, their systems fried by the Prometheus core's Tacitus overload, plummeted like dead insects. In Haven 7, the tremors were violent, terrifying. Rockfalls threatened to bury them, but the people held on, clinging to each other, eyes fixed on the comms unit on Eris. "Brenna!" Eris yelled into the comm, his voice raw. "Brenna, respond!" Static. Then, a weak, crackling voice. "Did it, Eris? Did we see the stars?" Eris closed his eyes, tears cutting tracks through the grime on his face. "Yeah, Brenna. Yeah, we see them." Silence. Then a final faint whisper, almost lost in the static. "Good." The common went dead. The silence that followed was profound. Not the silence of death, but the stunned silence of a world holding its breath. The tremors subsided. The groaning of the rock faded. Through the newly formed fissures in the cavern ceiling, shafts of pale, pre-dawn light. Real sunlight pierced the gloom, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. Eris stood at the edge of the main cavern, looking up at the impossible sight of a sliver of blue sky. The shroud was broken, not gone but fractured, its power crippled. The Jackaras were reeling, their perfect order shattered by the chaotic fury of the death world they'd sought to contain. He turned to the survivors, exhausted, grieving, but alive. Their faces, illuminated by the first true sunlight in decades, were etched with awe, sorrow, and a dawning fierce hope. They had fought from the bones, and the bones had answered. Kale approached, holding a data slate. On it, a final transmission, patched through the dying embers of the Prometheus core before it went dark. It wasn't from the Jacor, it was a fragmented log entry, translated from Vuraik's personal archive, captured in the chaos, miscalculation, fundamental. The Kalarn aren't merely unstable. They are symbiotic. The death world does not merely house them. It empowers them. Their chaos is not weakness. It is adaptation. It is the planet's own immune response. We did not cage a species. We provoked a world, and the world fights back. Containment protocol failed. Advise retreat. Advise fear. Eris read the words, then looked out at the sliver of sky, then down at the scarred, resilient faces of his people. The cost had been immense. Brenna. So many others. The sky was still scarred, the shroud's remnants a looming threat. The Zakor were wounded, not dead. But they were free. Free to breathe the open air. Free to see the stars. Free to fight another day, not as ghosts in the dark, but as children of the death world standing on the bones of their ancestors and their enemies alike. He raised his voice, not loud but clear, carrying through the cavern, echoing with the weight of sacrifice and the promise of dawn. We buried our dead in the bones of the earth. Now, we build our future on them. The sky is broken, but it's ours to mend, or to burn. The choice is ours. He turned and walked towards the newly opened fissure, towards the light, towards the uncertain, terrifying, glorious future. Behind him, the survivors of Haven 7 gathered their wounded, their children their salvaged tools, and followed. Not up, not yet, but deeper into the mountain, into the planet's enduring strength. For the fight wasn't over. The shroud was broken, but the war for Earth had just begun, and humanity. The Deathworld's defiant child would meet it standing tall, forged in the fire beneath the bones, ready to reclaim not just the sky but their very right to exist beneath it. The silence was gone. Now there was only the sound of footsteps on stone and the distant hopeful cry of a world waking up.